Evening, everyone. Rather interesting one tonight. Very tasty indeed. Duck pie, which you can have with whatever you like or on its own. Bit of time cooking, but still definitely worthwhile. I'll hand you over to Ting.
สวัสดีค่ะเพื่อนๆวันนี้เรามาทำเป็ดพายกันค่ะส่วนผสมอาจจะเยอะหน่อยนะคะแต่ถ้าดูคลิปของเราจนจบแล้วก็ตามส่วนผสมต่างๆมันก็คงไม่ยากสำหรับเพื่อนๆที่จะทำหรอกค่ะส่วนผสมทั้งหมดนะคะเดี๋ยวอันนี้มันเป็นแป้งพายเราซื้อมาจากแมคโครค่ะเป็นชิ้นเนี่ยสำหรับ
ภาษาฝรั่งเป็น puff pastry
ใช่ puff
pastry
แป้งพายแล้วก็เป็ดนี้เราซื้อมาจากแมคโครเหมือนกันเป็นส่วนหน้าอกแช่แข็งมาแล้วก็ใช้ส่วนผสมเห็ดขึ้นช่ายฝรั่งโรสแมรี่แล้วก็ใบกะวานแล้วก็นี่คือต้นกระเทียมฝรั่งแล้วก็ลีกแล้วก็เบคอนแล้วก็ไวน์แดงแล้วก็น้ำสต๊อกไก่ค่ะน้ำสต๊อกไก่แล้วก็ไข่สำหรับทาตรงบนแป้งพายส่วนผสมทั้งหมดนะคะเดี๋ยวเจมี่จะบอกว่ามีอะไรมั่งค่ะโอเค
Thank you, darling. Okay, duck pie, lovely one for the oven. Not too difficult, quite a few ingredients, but easy enough if you follow us. Takes a bit of time, but really rewarding dinner. I hope you like it. If you do, please subscribe and like this video to help us keep going. Duck pie. Right. We need duck breasts, which the skin will be taken off, and you want about 450 grams of meat, which is about 500 grams of duck breasts, including skin and the fat underneath it. Then to go with it, we've got 90 grams of bacon, which will be sliced. We've got 250 grams of sliced leeks, delicious leeks. We're having a bit of a mixture of mushrooms, white and button mushrooms and brown mushrooms too. 220 grams of mushrooms. We've got 100 grams of celery stalks, which will be chopped finely. Then we've got 1.5 bay leaves here, and we've got some fresh rosemary. We've got a stalk and a half of fresh rosemary in there, which we're going to tie up, I think, in a piece of muslin because the leaves fall off and they're a bit spiky in the mouth when you eat it. Then we've got 90 grams, is it 90 grams of, 35 grams of butter. 35 grams of butter, which we fry the mushrooms in. 1 1/3 tablespoons of flour for thickening the juice. Then we've got puff pastry. You can make your own puff pastry, but quite often it's easier to buy it. And we happen to find some that's in slices, about the right size for our dishes. The only problem is that unfortunately they were made with palm oil rather than butter, but that's something that lots of people like, and some of us, it's just a cross we have to bear. Then we've also got 80 grams of shredded carrot to go with it, 250 mils of red wine, any old wine for cooking, red wine for cooking is good, 450 mils of chicken stock there, and some egg, beaten egg for brushing the pastry at the end. And all this 450 grams of duck is probably enough for 4 pies, because you can make them as a giant pie, but then you need one of those things to hold the pastry up in the middle. I forgot to say, there is some seasoning that goes on the duck before we start. There's some powdered garlic and some paprika and Himalayan salt, pink salt, of course, or sea salt will do, and freshly ground black pepper, which is essential for almost everything. So we start off with rubbing a mixture of the garlic, the paprika, and the salt and pepper. Mix them all up on a plate, and then sprinkle them all over the duck breast skin and rub it in. So the duck breasts go in skin down, because duck is a very fatty meat anyway. We'll turn them over in a minute. It also gets some of the fat out, but it doesn't really matter how much whether you burn the skin or not, because we take the skin off. Some people may want to leave it on, in which case it'll be very flavoursome. Well, our gas ran out just as we started to fry the duck skin, so we've moved on to electricity, which has delayed things a bit, but just turned them over. As you can see, the skin's nicely browned. Great for people who want to keep it in there, or the flavour should have leaked out by now. We've got about another minute in there before we move on. But in the meantime, we've used the time to chop the onions, chop the mushrooms up all together. We've chopped the bacon nice and small, and things managed to put the rosemary into a sort of little cloth bag to minimise how many leaves are left in it, and just chop the celery as well. So we take the duck out, and like a master surgeon, Ting is extracting the fat and the skin from the nice juicy meat. The next step is pop the chopped bacon into the pan that was used for frying the duck. Stir it around and fry it until it gets soft, which it almost is. Won't take long. It's still on quite a high heat. Once the bacon is soft, you throw in the celery and the carrot and the leeks and stir them around and fry them until they have softened mildly. They don't have to be soft because of course this is going to go into the oven. While they're frying, it would be a good idea to put your oven on. You will want it at 180 degrees. That mixture has gone soft now, so next step is to return the duck, which we've cut into long strips. Not thin strips, so it's easier for it to cook through in there with all the vegetables, and it'll cook easier. And we shred the duck in due course, so it helps if it's in finger size pieces. And we also will add the bay leaves and the rosemary corona there. Those go in, and then we add the wine, and the chicken stock, and stir them around to give them a couple of minutes to just wetten up. We bring it to the boil now. Okay, that's boiling. So now we transfer it into our casserole dish. Bit by bit, first of all the rosemary will go in so that it's under all the juice and what have you. Then I think that the bay leaves as well. The bits of duck will go in, and the rest just gets poured over the top. Like so. Beginning to look tasty. Good. We'll flatten that out, pop the lid on, and pop it in the oven. all sealed up. So into the oven it goes, into the middle, and we leave it to roast in there for 1¼ hours. We're about to take the duck out of the oven, so just before we do, we want to pop the butter into a frying pan and pop the mushrooms into the butter and fry them through. They don't need to be fried too fast, just cook them. Mushrooms release a lot of juice themselves, so stir them frequently and wait until they're brown. The ducks come out of the oven, absolutely reeking of loveliness, and so the mushrooms go straight in and get stirred around. The next stage is to remove the pieces of duck and the herbs. Right, the pieces of duck are out. While they cool a little bit before we shred them, we'll take some juice from the casserole dish and pop it into a small receptacle, and then add the flour, and mix it around to make a smoothish paste. You can get most of the any lumps of flour out. That looks pretty smooth, and then it gets transferred back into the casserole and stirred around so that it can thicken the juice that's held inside the pie. Then, piece by piece, we take a piece of the duck and, whichever way you like, turn it into strings or little pieces or whatever you like. You break it up so that it mixes with the rest of the casserole. So do that for all of the pieces, and then pop the meat, once it's stringed, back into the casserole to soak up the juice. Having stirred everything around and let it sit for 5-10 minutes just for the flavors to combine and to cool a bit so it's handleable, we then fill the little dishes with the mixture. Okay, we've got 4 of our larger pie dishes and 3 ramekins, which is plenty. So now we take out a piece of puff pastry from its packet, and by stretching it slightly, cover it tightly over the top. You can, if you like pastry, you can leave the bits that hang over the edge, although they don't cook very well, so you have to like pastry that's a bit soft and soggy if you leave the bit round the outside. You can trim that off if you like with a knife, and then you'll have a nice pastry top which is even and symmetrical. There we are. They're all ready on the oven tray, ready to go in. The last bit of attention they need is to be brushed lightly with egg over the top, and this cooks beautifully. So you cover them all with a thin coating of egg. There they are, beautifully glazed with egg. So now they go into the oven for 15 to 20 minutes, or until the pastry is brown on top, toasty brown. Out of the oven they come, beautifully toasted on the top, One of them didn't stick terribly well, but that doesn't matter. So there we have them. 4 slightly larger and 3 slightly smaller. Perfect duck pies. Depending on your hunger, you can have a little one, a big one, or whatever combination you like. Choose any vegetable, choose any potato, or just eat them on their own. They look delicious. The only thing that really will make them taste much better is if you have one with a glass of red wine. And the better the wine, the better the overall flavour. Enjoy!